There we go. Okay, we're on. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to All Things Agriculture Podcast. Thanks for joining us tonight. Pleased to have Josh here. What your last name? How do we? Grobelny.
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 Grobelny. The L is silent.
Grobelny.
Yep.
Okay. I've seen it written down a bunch of times. I've never known how to pronounce it. So Grobelny. Okay.
Yep.
Josh. Hey, thanks for stopping by tonight.
Oh yeah.
So kind of been pestering you a little over the last few months about. Well, you're a listener, right?
Yep, I am. Yep, I listened to all the episodes.
Thank you. So anyway, I know Josh. Josh works for Dairy One. I'm sure if any of you are listening or watching and have a dairy farm, you may know who Josh is, and he might test your milk. So I guess I'll hand it over to you, and why don't you give a little background about who you are and where you're from, and yeah.
All right. My name is Josh Grobelny. I am from Moravia, New York. I was born and raised here. I'm 23. I grew up on beef farm my parents had when I first was born. They bought the farm as a beef farm. They bought all the cows and everything. So I grew up with beef cows until I was about 10, and then we got rid of the beef cows because the barn fell in, basically. So then when I was 12, I went to work for a local organic dairy farmer who paid me $2.50 an hour to milk his dairy cows. So that's where I got my start in dairy farming. And I did that for quite a few years as I was younger and did a lot of work for him. And then I went and bought my own dairy herd. I brought it into his herd. Shouldn't have tapped the table. That was loud.
Oh, it's fine.
I bought those dairy cows, put them into his herd. I've grown my herd ever since. That's where also I married his granddaughter. So that kind of worked out well. So I met her, and that's kind of where I stuck on the farm for quite a bit because of that reason. And then I went to work for Dairy One back in 2000, and I think it was the late 2019. I went to work for Dairy One and started working for them pretty much full time, plus dairy farming on the side for the farmer. And then I ended up in the spring of 2021. So it's only been about a year since I pulled my dairy cows out of that herd, and me and my father-in-law started a dairy farm in Moravia, and we're organic grass-fed through Maple Hill Creamery, so we ship through them. So, and that's kind of where I'm at today. So, I dairy farm full-time, plus I Dairy One test all the cows full-time, so I keep myself very busy.
Yeah, you're just saying you're kind of in a calving spot right now.
Yep,
you aren't seasonal, but you're heavier certain times of the year.
We get paid, or we used to, but it's since with the milk price and everything, with the whole milk industry, it's kind of different than it used to be. But we bred towards it for about 5 years or so. We were breeding towards winter freshening because we were getting up to $40 a hundredweight for our milk in the winter. Anything we could ship over our minimum amount of milk that we were supposed to ship. So we started breeding for that really heavily, and it did really well for us. And we make really iron baleage with a lot of protein, a lot of sugars in it and stuff like that, so that we can push our cows to make a lot of milk in the winter on just hay, because we don't feed any grains or corn or anything like that at all. So we kind of freshen out in the wintertime just because then we can hit the ground running in the spring on good grass, and the cows are already making a lot of milk at that point, so it just keeps pushing them harder and harder to get more milk out of them, because once you hit late summer, they're all going to kind of dwindle off anyway. So you might as well have everybody bred back and getting fat on grass in the late summer, so, and not trying to push as hard through the late summer while we're trying to make hay and all that stuff. So, but yeah, that's about what we do. So
the reasoning behind the higher milk price in the winter is essentially most guys are either seasonal, they aren't milking certain parts of the winter, or
yeah, the whole grass-fed thing, it's harder to make milk in the winter because there's no grass.
Yeah.
So
unless you have to have your own.
You have
supply.
to make up a lot of hay. So, and that's why because they're never looking for milk during the spring, because the spring flush. I mean, tons and tons of grass milk. I mean, it's coming in, but in the wintertime, it really dwindles down because it's not as easy as everyone thinks it is to make really good hay to feed your cows, to keep body condition on them, and to make a lot of milk on baleage alone. So
yeah, is that tough to keep? Just you don't have the you don't have the carb energy like you have in a corn silo. Is that tough to keep that?
It's
body?
genetically bred at that point. I mean, we've been breeding for grass-fed genetics for ever since I bought my herd grass-fed genetics for that reason. And we bred bulls, we breed A2, all that type of stuff to help keep us ahead of the I guess the niches. You never know what's going to come along. Somebody might want to buy your milk just because it's a little fancier. And that's the only way you can make it as a small-time farmer nowadays is to have some type of niche. So
yeah, you're exactly right about that.
Yeah.
That's, I believe, yeah. So you do a lot of A2. All your bulls are A2.
All my
A2.
bulls are A2 tested and bred to, and we do a lot of that type of breeding. And then we pick our own bulls out of our own herd just because we like our genetics. But we have bought in a few here and there. But we try to have a pretty closed herd as much as we can. So
what do you use? You have like Friesians, like New Zealand type?
We have Dutch Belteds, Milking Shorehorns, Ayrshires. We have a few Angus crosses. We have some purebred Holsteins that came from an original herd that we transitioned to organic. We have New Zealand genetics, some New Zealand Jersey genetics. Basically, those color breeds that nobody sees. We have a bunch of linebacks. Like I was telling you, we had a 20-pound sopping wet lineback calf born the other morning, and it's happy and healthy and bunking around. But we have a lot of the linebacks, and they don't seem to milk as great as my Dutch Belteds do. I call them, my Dutch Belteds are definitely the Holstein of grass cows, but they do all right.
So a lot of these breeds are more of they're pushing the components of butter, fats, and proteins, less volume.
We push a high butter fat and all the proteins and stuff. I mean, my Dutch Belteds can average 50 pounds, 50, 60 pounds when they're fresh up until about 150 days, 180 days in milk. But once they hit over that peak, there's a point where basically being grass-fed is basically getting your cows bred back and freshening out as quick as possible because they're going to make more milk when they're fresh, and that's just kind of how it is. So
yeah, it's hard to sustain that.
Yeah, you can't have a cow that's 280 days in milk still milking 80 pounds like you can at a conventional dairy farm. It just doesn't happen. So she's going to put her weight back on, and she's going to not want to do anything. She's going to lay around and be lazy and not want to, So
what's your cutoff in terms of breeding? Because you have such a specific time period where you really have to get that cow bred.
We can definitely hold them over more than a seasonal farmer can. I mean, we definitely have had it where she comes in or she had a hard birth and she didn't get bred back as quick as she should have or whatever. And we can definitely push her over until the summer. And it doesn't hurt to have some fresh cows trickling in during the summer. They just don't do as well as the ones coming right off of winter into the spring. But we hold on to her. I mean, we don't cull cows basically ever. I mean, I think in the last probably 5 years of my herd, I think I've called out maybe a cow a year. So just because I don't need to call out cows very often, as long as they don't have feet problems and as long as they are good and not cystic, we can normally keep them around. So for a while, and then if it gets to the point where they're only milking 5 pounds and you just can't. And they're just really fat and they're just not doing anything. It's like, all right, it's time for you to leave.
Yeah, so. They're big, giant fat, and their udder is just like a little, it looks like a little pouch. Like,
they just look at you and they're so happy to be alive, but they just, they need to go away.
time to go.
And with beef price being high, it's kind of tempting to be like, oh, well, it's time for you to head on out and
change your career.
Yep. So,
what is because I know, conventional price right now is, I think for the month of January, got close to $25. Is a grass-fed organic following?
We are at 34.
Okay.
And then with components, we can get up to about 36, 50, 37, somewhere in there. So it's less than it used to be. I mean, when we first went to Maple Hill back when I was at the grandfather's farm, we were getting $40 a hundredweight, and then if you were getting good components, you could get to $42, $44. I mean, it was just crazy money this company was paying for the milk, and they were making cheeses and yogurts and stuff like that, and all that stuff has basically been scrapped off the board at this point. And they do some yogurt, but now it's mostly just milk and yogurt, and it's not really like they don't chew cheeses anymore and all that type of stuff. So it's definitely that their creamery has changed from what it used to be, because it was a New York-based creamery down in Kinderhook, and it was a local farmer who started it, and he just got bigger and bigger and bigger and started adding on farms and that's basically how it got. And then up until about the last 2 years, he actually, the owner of it, that was the farmer, decided he was going to step away from the creamery and go sail his boat around the Caribbean.
Oh.
So he's having a good time.
He made his money.
So he made his money, and he stepped away, I think, at the right time. But the company, he still owns the company. It's just he's not running the company. So that's the only thing that's different now. And there's other people that are marketing managers that are running it and stuff, and it's all right.
Do you think he was definitely the catalyst of keeping it?
He was definitely the person that you could call, because like I had his cell phone number. Like if I had an issue, I could call directly to the owner. I can't do that anymore. So it's not like how it used to be, where Maple Hill was, I think, a lot more of a small farm, and they still are for the small farmer more than any other company is that I've seen. But it's definitely like it's just the industry. So the dairy industry is kind of crazy as it is. So
we know that well
yeah.
enough. So how many farms are in that co-op?
About 150. And it's only New York-based farms. So there's nobody else. It's other than as long as you're in New York. But there was a few of them I heard that were like on the Pennsylvania border, where the dairy farm itself was in New York, but the fields and everything were in Pennsylvania. So they kind of they let it slide apparently. But there was a lot of farms that were really, like when Maple Hill first started, they had a lot of farms scattered just everywhere. I mean, just there was a 10 cow dairy over in wherever, and they were, oh yeah, we'll come pick you up and we won't even charge you trucking. And they did. And I mean, when they, for the first 5 years of the company, that's what they did. They just went to get any milk they possibly could. And now within the last, I think it was like 2 or 3 years, they've been dropping a lot of farms that were, if you're not in the right location or you're kind of way out of the way, it's just the way it is.
It's typical how it all goes.
Yeah. And the trucking, we've started paying, Maple Hill still pays for about half of our trucking. So
better than anyone else.
It's better than anybody else, yeah. But a lot of farmers weren't very happy about it because they're like, well, you used to pay for all of it. Well,
yeah.
At least you're getting some of it paid for, is how I look at it. So
is it just there was such a demand for this product, and he was just making such hand over fist where he was willing to just send tractor trailers out?
He was looking for any bit of milk. I mean, there was no minimum. You could ship 500 pounds every other day. They didn't care, and it was just as much, if he could get as much milk as he possibly could, he would. And he was looking for basically anybody. He'd call around and, oh, you're an organic farmer? You looking to go grass fed? No grain, but yep, we'll pick you up, $40 100. And there was people that were switched right over. There's people that were signing contracts. And then I'm trying to remember what year. I think it was 2018 was the year that they actually sent out a bunch of notices saying that they were going to have to cancel contracts, and basically, if you were on the waiting list, you were going to have to get pushed back farther. So there was all these people that were building dairy farms to start doing grass-fed. They were like, they put tons of money up. They had a contract signed with them, and Maple Hill basically said, we can't take you right now. And they were the first ones to get added on. They were on a list, and if you were on that list, you were the first one to be added to the milk market. But it took a while for you to get on that list. So I'm trying to think.
You said earlier, did you join when you got your own herd, or was your wife's grandfather and was
he actually? Nope. We what happened was like I said, I had the owner's phone number, so I called him and said that we were going to separate from the grandfather's farm, and we wanted to know if we could basically the milk for our cows was already going to the company. We just wanted to know if we could have our own contract. And that's kind of what we did, and they were workable with us, and we made it work and everything, and we were within we're only, I don't even think it's a half a mile from Albany, the local pickup, so I mean we're basically a straight shot up the road to pick us up, so they didn't really have an issue with where we were. It was basically, and then so we talked to them and worked through it, and it was right during COVID. I mean, it was such a hassle. We had to have inspectors come out for Maple Hill to do body scoring on the cows to make sure our herd was profitable and was able to be conditioned as grass fed, which they were. I mean, we were already shipping grass fed, but so during that whole time, like we couldn't even, when the inspector came out, we couldn't even be at the farm. He came to the farm just to look at the animals without us there because COVID. And then our PCO organic, we had to inspect the farm as certified organic, so they wanted us to do a Zoom call and then do it over webcam, like take them to the field and say, that's the field right there, that one. So,
It's all organic.
but there was one inspector that was willing to come out, and he said he didn't care, and he was going to come out. He didn't have an issue. He didn't put a mask on, or anything. He just was fine with it. So he was an older guy. He was so that's how that all worked out.
I wish all of our inspections were by Zoom. Hey, you want to see our pipeline? Okay, yeah, there it is. You see?
This is the clean spot, right there.
Yeah. See, there it is. It looks good, doesn't it? Okay.
Yep.
Oh man, huh? So that's pretty interesting. So are they the only milk, grass-fed milk co-op in New York or the Northeast?
So they're on the labeling. They are the first. They were the first organic, 100% organic grass-fed maple company in New York, is what they labeled it as, and they still are. But there is Burn Dairy. They have it's called Burn Hollow.
Okay.
And that's their organic line, but they do have a grass-fed line. And then there's Organic Valley. They have their grass-fed route too. And I think there's a few other ones. Stony Field might have a grass-fed route and stuff like that.
Was Maple Hill? Were they kind of the first?
They were the
pioneers, and then the others saw and they're, we'll do the same thing.
They were a very small grass-fed, but they were the first to be to label their products as 100% grass-fed. I mean, there was grass-fed farms that were organic, but they weren't certified as 100% grass-fed. So it was kind of like we do a lot of pasture-based grazing, and our cows get fed a lot of hay, but there's still some grain-fed.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how that was.
I would say that's most organic farms.
Most organic farms, yeah. You have to graze for a certain amount. I think it's 100 and I think it's about 150 days for just a straight organic farm. You have to graze for about 150, 145 days or so out of the year. But for 100% grass-fed, we have to be up above 165. So we have to graze for quite a lot of days.
So that's five and a half months. 120
5 and a half.
Four.
Yep. So yeah, we start grazing right about. I want to say last year we started like May 8th. So and we started grazing, and we have to get about 65% of their daily dry matter intake from the pasture. So we don't feed a ton of. We do feed a little bit of. We'll do some second cutting in the barn when they're getting milked and stuff, but 90% of their feed is coming from the pastures. So we do a very intensive rotational grazing. We give them, I think it's like 1 acre paddocks, and they get switched after every milking. So they're only on it for 12 hours. So they're always getting moved. So,
how big's your herd again?
We milk about 65 cows.
Okay.
So.
And the their base is kind of like they're in summertime, they're in milk, and they're right back out. It's just kind of a revolving door.
So we milk about 65 cows, give or take, depending on, but we milk with 10 units. So we can milk, me and my wife can get through our herd in about 45, 50 minutes. We can milk the entire herd down and kick them right back out onto pasture. So it doesn't, and then all the heifers are at the heifer facility on pasture all year. So you don't have to do a deal with them. And calves, like I said, we're winter freshening, so all the calves by that point are weaned basically. So we might have a few bottle babies, but chores can be done in under 2 hours basically.
That's pretty nice.
So we've set it up basically because, like I said, I work full time for Dairy One, so I can be there sometimes, but it has to be reasonable enough that I can be in and out before I have to go test another farm. So
yeah. So in terms of grazing, like this past 2021 was, as you and I, great. It was a great grazing. Great grazing. But the year before, when it was a drought, so do you get special exceptions?
Yes. In drought weather, we can do extra feed. We can feed baleage and stuff because we have to keep the cows fed, and there's not much we can do. We had what they call emergency pastures set up that were like. They were hay fields, but we could graze them if we needed to. And we did. We grazed off basically everything that we could before we started feeding hay. And I think we only had to end up feeding hay there was like a lot of their hay for probably about 2 weeks. And we were feeding strictly baleage, but it took up a lot of our feed just because, we were feeding all the late May cut hay that we made. Because we hadn't made second because there was no second. Yeah. So we burned through a lot of our late May hay, and then so we went into winter. Luckily, we ended up getting some really good third cutting at the end of that year. We put up a lot of third, and that kind of pushed us through. And then we had some leftover hay from the year before that we were able to feed heifers, so we weren't trying to rely on making heifer feed at the same time. So, but,
Yeah. So you did get a third cutting that.
Yep, we did. So we took second off, and then we put 2 ton an acre of chicken litter down. And did that, and then right after that, we timed it really well apparently, and it rained for like 2 days, and that was like right at the end of that season. Like we got 2 days worth of rain, and that was it. And we hit it just right, and all that rain and chicken litter made that grass come right up real thick, and we were able to get a lot. We do about 300 acres or so of hayland. So all that combined, we were able to get quite a bit of third. So
that is quite a bit for 65.
Yeah,
animals.
for us, that's a lot. I mean, because we feed 2.5 bales or so twice a day. So to the dairy herd, so 4 or 5 bales a day. The dairy herd will eat just because we push a lot of feed to them. So,
Yeah. We never even got that rain that season.
There was a lot of farmers I went to. I was like, did you get that rain the other day? What? No, I saw it over on that hillside.
I used to watch the rain go to the north towards where you live. Mm-hmm. And we would have nothing. Actually, a guy who does some of the mowing for he mows my place and another house we own. He told us, he said, there's about a mile stretch from McLean Road and 222, and he said between there no one gets rain, but you go either north or south of it and it's green.
Yep.
But you guys have literally got nothing. That's a challenge when all your land is within 1 mile. Basically all of our land is within 1 mile of our farm. So if we don't get rain, nothing gets rain. But at least if you had land 2 miles away, maybe you'll get rain.
So we got land that's 10 miles away that we haul hay from, and it's quite a haul, but I mean it definitely made a difference because there was it's over near Skinny Atlas Lake.
Okay.
So sometimes you'll get rain over there that we won't get in Moravia, so it works out, and then we'll be like, okay, well this pasture's or this hayfield's not doing well, but the one over there can be cut and we'll make hay on that. So
yeah, I didn't realize how convenient it is being close, but at the same time how kind of, what's the word?
Boxed in.
Yeah, and you aren't.
You're limited on what you can.
Because if it doesn't rain at the farm, basically none of your crops are getting rain. But so that what happened was that fall, there's a neighbor. He's probably a 5-minute drive from here, and he has sold it. He was selling his cows within I think in October of 2020. Or was it last year? Yeah, 2021. He was selling his cows. I think. When did we get the drought? 2 years ago, 2020.
It was 2 years ago.
2020. So he was selling his cows in October 2020. And he's like, hey, I have a 20-acre pure alfalfa field. I don't need it. I'm going to just plow it under, put corn in it next year. If you want the hay, just come get it. Pay him for it. So we did that. Everything was dead at our farm. We go to his place. I mean, it's a 5-minute drive with a car. And the alfalfa was 2 feet tall.
Looks great.
Yeah, we're like, what the hell? And he's like, take it. So we took it, brought it back out 100 some odd bales, went back for a fourth. We had had no rain. By this point, it's September, pushing October. The alfalfa was taller the second time around. And he's like, oh, he had puddles of water. He's like, oh yeah, we got rain just the other day. We're like, yeah, we watched it go.
Yeah, we watched it go by.
Go to the north. And
I love when you're driving down the road and you'll see the line in the road where the rain stopped. And you're just like, oh, okay.
It's oh my, it's so just.
We had a farmer in New Hope, and we certified a lot of his land. And because we'd buy hay, and we'd certify the land as organic, and we'd run it as organic land. And he was going to try to make hay on it it was the drought year. And he just couldn't keep up because over there he was getting tons of rain, and he had so much hay ground, and he just couldn't keep up by himself. So we started coming back. We came back over, and then we had the land still certified, so we went back over and we kept making hay on it. And we made a lot of first cutting. It was June cut first cutting, but it was good heifer feed, and we made a lot. That's where a lot of our drought heifer feed came from, and we're still feeding a lot of that.
Really?
So, yeah, because we singly wrap all of our bales, so we stack them, and as long as they don't get punctured, they stay good. I mean, they lose a lot of their vitamins and everything that's in them, but they don't really go bad.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the thing. Right now, behind my house, we've fed 300 bales so far, over 300, and we have another 300 or 400 to go of good quality bales. Plus, we have another 250 of rye and triticale we haven't even touched. And our one bunk of haylage is still completely full, and we probably won't touch that till May. So it's talking to my dad like, well, we gotta figure something out. We're gonna put all the hay this year. I mean, who knows? Maybe we'll have another drought. I hope not, but it's
Well, you'd be prepared if you did.
yeah, and the way where well, you don't really have to worry. Well, I don't know. It's chicken litter like fertilizer, conventional fertilizer is out of sight.
Yeah.
Are you seeing that with
I haven't
any sort of chicken?
I have yet to call and order my chicken litter yet, but I'm hoping it's not. But I'm guessing
I'd be surprised to see what that is.
Yeah, because I mean, chicken litter, just the amount of nitrogen it has in it. I mean, I would be very surprised if nobody else was like, oh, that's a cheap replacement for fertilizer.
Yeah.
So
does that come out of the Mid Atlantic, like Maryland?
No, it comes out of it's out of New York. There's a farm it's up in Upper New York that it comes out of that we get ours from. So, but yeah.
Stuff pretty potent.
It's pretty rich. I mean, it's not sifted. I mean, it's not the cleanest stuff you can get possibly, because you can buy that stuff. But I mean, if you're just putting it on pastures and stuff, it doesn't really make too big of a difference. And we spread it with a lime spreader, and so it works out well.
You just want a rain pretty soon after to help.
Yeah, because I mean, you can put it on, and it's not like cow manure where it's pretty watery. You'll have a strip of nice green grass once you spread it. But if you put the chicken litter down and you let it rain, it rains right after it, I mean, you'll definitely see the grass come right back up and pretty quickly. So the grass gets very dark, and the cows, they don't seem to love the hay at first, but they definitely get used to it. So
it's kind of like where they take a crap in the field.
They don't want to eat it, but it looks like a good spot, but they just won't eat it.
It's nice and green and tall, and they just go around it.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in New Zealand, when I studied in New Zealand, and then I visited a friend in Ireland, they make those cows, they eat those down where the crap.
They do really hard grazings where they have no choice.
Yeah. And it's like you can see where the cow pies are, because it's just like mound, but it's grazed right down. Like, how do you make them do that? Like you said,
they get used to it.
Yeah, they get used to it and they'll eat it.
We put 2 ton an acre chicken litter on, and there's not much ground that they can't find grass that hasn't been spread on. So it's kind of like at that point, which I mean, the grass, like the baleage comes in and it's really high protein. It's really good sugars and stuff. But they kind of turn their nose up at it for the first day or two, and then they're kind of like, okay, I'll eat it.
Yeah. So, better than nothing.
And they milk good on it. It's just they throw a fit about it. Our cows are super picky about their feed for some reason. We have spoiled cows.
So they're just as bad as Holsteins. They're like, I don't like Angus are just
Angus will eat concrete, but I mean the Jerseys, can't even eat that. It's a little stocky.
Are Jerseys more divas than Holsteins?
Yes. Yeah. All the herds I've gone to and all the herds I've dealt with, Jerseys are definitely the pickiest of all the animals, and they will literally eat something and just say, I don't like it, I'll die. I'm just gonna die.
I've worked with a few Jerseys on a farm. I worked for a farm in Maine, and there was on me like 4 or 5 Jerseys, and those things would like the Holsteins come into a pen like in a freeze-thaw, and the Holsteins, after they come back from milk, they usually run to the opposite end of the pen and start to eat, with the Jersey just right there.
Yeah.
She's like, out there smarter or what? The Holsteins are dumb. They just run, and the Holsteins like, Jersey's like, yep, right. I'll just be the first one.
I go to a couple farms and I can see the cows in the free stalls, and it's funny that the Jerseys will stick together and the Holsteins will stick together, but they won't really mingle. And it's like, it's kind of clicky. But yeah, you'll see that quite a bit. But the Jerseys definitely seem to. I mean, I've worked with enough Jerseys. Like I've seen Jerseys get milk fever. Like after they're in milk 150 days, they're like, I'm gonna get milk fever now. I mean, seems like a weird time, but okay.
Up in Maine, the herdsman told me about one Jersey they had. The first thunderstorm of the year, the Jersey would have milk. It didn't matter if she could be fresh, 200 days of milk, or dry.
Must have stressed her out or something.
Every time to the first thunderstorm of the year, she'd be down with milk fever. They had to go find her and treat her. Weird, very weird. But yeah, they do make cute babies, though.
They do make cute babies. Not worth much, but they make cute babies, and they make a lot of. I mean, I do some. I test for some really high-end heritage Jersey farms, and they ship a 6 and up butter fat. I mean, just crazy amount of butter fat, and they get paid through DFA. They get paid a lot of money for their milk, like conventional organic money for their milk, just because of how high their butter fat is, which makes me sit there thinking, boy, if you could just get your components right, you could probably do all right just being conventional. But it's neither here nor there.
Well, a guy I know has I've heard a Dutch Hollow farm.
Yep.
So he's in a discussion group. One of the I don't know if he's an owner. He works there. He's his wife's family. He married into it. And he brought this up at a meeting I was at just the other day, and it makes sense. He said some Holstein guys who are with the DFA have the quota. They're get rid of Holsteins and bring in jerseys because you'll have the lesser volume, but you'll have the components.
Yep.
And so, that actually makes a lot of sense if you don't want to really sell off. You don't want to lose the amount of cows you're milking, but you just want to lower your volume.
Yep. I go to a farm, and his production has gotten to the point where it's so high and so broad across the entire span, he's no longer culling on production, he's culling on butterfat. So if he's not at a certain butterfat, it doesn't matter if that cow's milking 90 pounds, she's not going to stick around for the next lactation just because she doesn't have a good enough butterfat, and it's not worth his time to keep her because he has enough cows coming in, and it's more about the components than it is about volume now.
Yeah, for sure. Pounds of fat, butterfat, protein.
I've heard farmers say that they're like, boy, I get paid for components. Why don't I just open the tap on the bottom of the tank and don't turn the agitator on and let it skim out and send the butter? I mean, probably get paid probably just about the same, but
yeah, especially if you're a DFA and you have a quota amount that you or Agrimart.
You get docked on if you ship over your quota amount. I mean, you might as well just turn the agitator off and let the cream rise up a little bit and take some of the skim off the bottom.
Let the water run out.
Run it out to the gutter and spread it.
Farmers have ingenuity. They'll figure out how to make it work. Well, so being a kind of Dairy One, you must see a wide array of different strategies. I mean, not that you really know each farm individually, but you have an idea just seeing different herds.
You see the same thing at every farm. Everybody's milking cows and doing their best, but you definitely see the farmers that everyone does it a little different, and they all have their ideas of how to make it better and how they're going to do it and how they're going to do it the best. And so you see a very broad span across the entire board. I mean, I test everywhere from 9 cows all the way up to, we do a farm over in Auburn, New York that's milking, I think they're around 4,500 cows. Now Lincoln Dairy is about 4,500 cows, and they're a very big farm. So, I mean, and there's bigger. I mean, there's farms out in Western New York that are up above 6,000 cows. And I mean, we're not testing the biggest farms, but we're testing the Finger Lakes area is definitely a very high milk area. I mean, we have the most farms in this general section of New York has more farms than the rest of it.
Oh, really? And what's your area?
I run Cuga County down to Tompkins County, and I do a little bit of broad work outside of that, but mostly I run Cuga and Tompkins County farms. So
in a month, so those who don't know, you typically, not all, but most farms are monthly.
Yep, most farms are monthly. I do about anywhere from 30 to 40 farms a month. Depends on the month, I guess, and how many extra farms I need to get done and catch up on. So, I mean, there's some farmers, they want to test every 30 days. Some do every 35, which is a 5-week interval. So they can hit their 10 tests a year, but they don't have to. Because you have to have 10 tests a year to be registered test. And then you can skip those other 2, so they don't see the need to pay for the other 2 if they don't have to. Okay. So that's why they do 35. And then there's farmers that do 45 or every other month. And then there's farmers that will skip 4 months. And that's where it's kind of like, okay, well, let me know when you want to test and we'll fit you in then. So,
okay.
But no, most of my farms are around 30 to 35 days. So I try.
How many cows would you say in a month that you test?
Oh, probably 15,000 or so, 15 to 17,000, somewhere in there. Depends on how many of my own. I do about 15,000, and then I work with other techs in the area that we do the really big farms on, like Lincoln or Willett or those big farms in the area.
Multiple people.
There's multiple people running those farms, so just because you have to. So
yeah, you can't do it all yourself.
I've ran days where I get to one farm at 4 a.m. and I work at that farm and then go back to the other farm and work at that farm till 8 o'clock at night, And then I go from that farm back to the other farm, and I help them wash up, and I don't leave until midnight. So I've been up for 20 hours.
Jeez.
And I did that for a little while, and then I kind of got to the point where I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. So, and I've kind of cut back on my midnight shifts because I was doing a lot of them, and I was pushing a lot of 12 to 15-hour days. And it's a lot to be on the same farm for 15-hour days, because we don't get breaks because the parlor doesn't stop.
Yeah.
And we don't get, well, I mean, we can run to the bathroom if we can find a bathroom, and we get to eat on the go. We'll throw a piece of pizza on our clipboard and we'll walk around and eat our pizza. And I listen to a lot of music and a lot of podcasts. So, yep.
Yeah, that's being in one spot too.
Yeah,
like, it's not like,
yeah, we don't really. I mean, yeah, when we're at these farms, I mean, you're walking around, but you're in that same parlor scene. I mean, I see the morning crew show up, more milk all morning, milk all afternoon. Night crew show up, and then it's like, okay, I've just seen 2 shifts of crews come and go, and I'm kind of still here.
yeah.
So
Let's get like.
you get tired,
Yeah.
but it's all right. You get used to it. So
Yeah, you kind of have to. So I guess for those who aren't listening, just a quick synopsis of what exactly testing
okay.
on a farm. I figure it's probably people listening who have no idea what we're talking about, so they might be very confused.
I go to the dairy farms and we do data record entry. So we can, if it's a small tie stall that doesn't have their own on-farm computer, we can enter in their fresh dates, calving dates, dry dates, breedings, and all that information. Then we take our milk meters and we weigh the amount of milk that each cow gives individually. And then if they want to do a sample on that cow, we can take individual samples of each cow, and we'll keep all that stuff sorted correctly. And we send it into our lab, and they do somatic cell count, and they do butter, they do protein, they do MUNs, and they can do up to pregnancies, yonis, BVD, all that type of stuff, different testing on the cows too. But the normal is cell count and butter fat and MUNs. And they get that stuff done every month, and helps them keep track of their herds. And I mean, when you have upwards of 1,000 cows, it's kind of hard to make sure you know what every cow's doing. So,
Man, helps a management tool.
Yep.
Can't strictly go by it because, like you've always told me, every cow, just because she made so much milk one day doesn't mean she's gonna.
Yeah, just because she made 50 pounds in the morning doesn't mean she's gonna make 50 pounds at night if you milk only twice a day. I mean, most farmers milk twice, but some will milk 3 times, some milk 4 times. It all depends on the farm and what he thinks he needs to do to make the most milk profitable. So,
yeah. And then, so it's basically what Dairy 1, DHIA, Dairy Herd Improvement. What's the A stand for?
No idea.
I have no idea. My aunt used to.
DHIA. Yep,
DHIA, Dairy Herd Improvement.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but basically, yeah.
I'll figure that out.
I'm sure it's helped made dairies.
Yes, it's helped the
significantly.
quality of dairy milk and dairy production, I think, a lot. Just because, I mean, like I said, I mean, if you're milking 4,000 cows, there's no way you can tell what that cow is if she's sick or she has a mastitis or a problem with her milk. I mean, there's no way you're going to be able to pinpoint her through the herd. So
yeah, you need that individual sample is extremely, that's probably the most valuable out of all. Like the milk weight's great, but the actual sample where you can see what's her
when you do a breakdown of your bulk tank and say, oh well, she's the biggest problem of the herd, she's 56% of the tank that's causing an issue, okay, we're going to pull her out, and that's going to make the tank a whole lot better.
My aunt was a
she stopped into your farm one night and was chatting with me a while. And she told me to harass some of the older techs that
they're probably all gone now.
There's 2 left that she wanted me to harass. And the one's on his way out, and the other one's retiring in December.
Okay.
So, but she wanted me to harass them and tell her that she's retired and they're not, and haha. So I did tell them that, and they laughed.
Yeah, she's telling me about how when she used to do it, and it was all just basically tie stall back in the, I think it was 80s, 90s, and tie stalls and probably very few parlors.
Yeah. Well, now everything is computers, and we do a lot of everything. Basically, everything we do is on computers. But my boss, he started testing back in the, I think he told me back in the early 80s, and you would take the samples from the cows and you would take it home with you, and you would have your acid and your tester stuff, and you would do it all right at your house, and you would write the information down on the paper, and you could take it back to the farmer, and you did all the testing yourself. You didn't send it into a lab to get done. So that's just been within the last, I don't know, probably, I think he told me it was back in the 1990s or late 90s that they started laboratories and doing it like that and doing high-end samples. So
Yeah, well, like you said, you go to a 30 cow herd and you aren't there till you probably aren't milking at midnight, so it's sort of a
yeah, you go in the morning at 4 a.m. You get done by 7. He said you'd go in, have breakfast with the farmer, then you'd head home, do your stuff, come back, do a night weight test on him, and then you would leave him his paperwork, and then you'd go do another one the next day. And it was just small tie stalls. That's what you did every day.
And there's probably 3 times the employee tester.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. There's not. Out of our market of Market 12, there is so small amount of people that are actually testing the amount of cows that we do. So.
Yeah, how many? You told me how many testers are there in your market, and the amount of cows you guys test?
I think there's probably, I want to say there's anywhere from 15 to 20 people throughout this entire Market 12, which runs all the way up north, and then basically pretty close down to the Pennsylvania border. And there's Market 10, 11, 12, and I think there's a 13 too now, but we're the Finger Lakes region market is what they call us. And there's probably 10, 15 of us in this market, and we test, I know one tech, he's testing 50,000 cows a month. So, and if the rest of the techs are testing about what I am, we're probably doing about 100,000 cows a month, or give or take, is what this market's doing alone. Just because, it's like I said, this is a very dairy-heavy region. I go down to a farm down in Jasper, New York, and they're the only farm.
Where's Jasper?
It's down near Rothbone.
Keep going.
That's my favorite town to go through. Rothbone. It's my favorite town to go through. Down near Corning.
Oh, okay.
Yep, down that way. So we can see the windmills in the Pennsylvania distance from the farm we're at. But it's a 2-hour drive to get there. We leave at 2 a.m. to get there at 4 a.m. And we test until about, I think we usually leave around 2 in the afternoon. So we've been up and going for 12, 13 hours at that point, and we're tired after that. So it's a long day.
It must be a larger herd then.
It's about, I think they're about 1,200 cows.
But they're the only tested farm in that area.
Yeah, yep, basically.
Huh.
So, yeah.
Well, isn't there testers in PA too?
Yep, there's testers in PA. There's a Lancaster DHI, which is their own separate entity, I think, from Dairy One. But they're still, I think a lot of their samples come to Dairy One to get tested, the laboratory in Ithaca. And then there is a DHI that's out in heading west in Ohio, in that area, to the farms out there, and they're a different market or a different regional company of their own. There's different DHI companies. It's not just Dairy One.
Okay.
So there's a lot of them at this point.
But probably Dairy One has the top lab where they can run samples through.
Dairy One has a pretty high-end lab. We do all the bulk tank tests. We do all of these milk sample tests for the area. All of New York, Maine, heading up into, there's Vermont, there's Ohio, PA, all these farms that are basically being tested that are within Dairy One's reach are getting sent back to Ithaca to get sampled and tested. So
that's a lot of samples.
It is a lot of
samples.
samples.
That is a lot of samples.
Yep. You go in, the lab has been behind, and they get behind very easily if a person gets sick or they don't have enough help, which with COVID, they've been hard to keep people working. But the lab has gotten better. They've been up to a week behind on samples, which is really tough because when they're trying to do bulk tanks, because bulk tank samples have to be done priority over dairy herds being tested. So you can only get things done so fast. So, but they do their best.
Yeah.
So
I know, and they do even more. They do down there. What is it? There's dairy,
they do forage. They do They do forage. They do feces testing. They do all that type of
water,
blood, a lot of different tests. Anything that you need done that's basically agriculture type of test, they can probably do it. Except for hemp, they don't do hemp. I thought they do THC testing back when we did 5 acres of hemp back in 2000 and I think it was 19 or 20, whenever that hemp
back when
was.
It was a hot thing
yeah,
to do,
we tried it. We did 5 acres of it just for kicks and giggles, and we ended up with a skid steer out of the deal. We bartered a all of our hemp biomass for a skid steer.
Really?
So
Hey,
it worked out.
Yeah, that
was,
worked out pretty well.
It was better than getting nothing. So
what was that like? You just decide, hell, we'll give it a try, and
yeah, we basically thought that my wife's grandfather is a weed, and he's a very big, like, they own New Hope Mills in Auburn, and so she's somewhat related to that family. And then the grandfather has a big mill company up in Savannah, New York. I forget the name of it, but he was really big into the hemp idea. So he got everybody hyped up on it. Oh, you're going to make $1 million. If you grow, I think he told me it was like 3 acres of hemp, you could make $1 million on. I was like, all right, well, we'll grow 5 acres of hemp. So we grew 5 acres of hemp, and it grew. We did really well with it. All by hand. Everything was tilled by hand. Everything was planted by hand because the transplants are so small and so frail that you have to plant everything by hand. You have to water everything by hand the first time, and then you have to go through and weed them. And once they get established, they're basically like a invasive weed because they just grow and grow, and they get this really thick stalk, and they really put up a lot of size on them. And we were harvesting. They look like little Christmas trees at that point. And we harvest everything by hand. We threw them on hay wagons, took them back to an old dairy barn that was a nice farm, but we hung everything in the barn on trellises like tobacco. I think we did 15,000 hemp plants, and hung them all by hand, let them dry out. Then we took them all down and hand shucked them, all the leaves and all the buds, into a big, huge feed tote, basically, and stored it. And then we had a buyer out in Colorado that wanted it, so we shipped some of it out there to him. Then we had a bunch of biomass left, and then this guy that was in, I want to say he was either in Vermont or whatever, wherever he was, he wanted the rest, a bunch of it. So we sent that to him. He liked it, but he didn't really have the money to buy it. But he had a skid steer, and we were like, boy, why don't we just get another skid steer? Which we have 3 now, so I mean, you can never have too many skid steers.
You can never have too many skid steers. Yeah,
we our dairy farm, we like to say that we're forwards farms because 3 of our tractors didn't have reverse for the longest time. So we were pushing the tractors into the manure pit with the skid steer to spread manure. But they're big like New Holland hydrostatic tractors, but we didn't want to send them away to get fixed because it's expensive. So we were just like, well, when you're round baling, you're only going forward, so what's it matter? Which I have videos of my father-in-law trying to get a bale out of the hedgerow and just driving in through the hedgerow and just taking trees down just to try to get this round bale out of the hedgerow. So
because he can't reverse.
So it's kind of like, well, I might as well just keep going. So
do you have reverse now? I know you were asking me if I knew.
I did. We have, out of the 3, 1 has reverse now.
Oh.
So we're getting there.
Well, yeah, that's what the 3 skid steers are for.
Yep, that's what the 3 skid steers are for now.
A chain works just as well to go.
Yep, we have New Hollands, and we run the old long tractors, which is a Polish brand tractor, and my father-in-law loves those tractors. They're super hard to get parts for. They're really not common in this area, but they always start and they always run. So I mean, it's kind of all we're looking for at this point. So
probably for the most part, don't have too much tractor work besides just cropping and stuff.
Just cropping and spreading manure. Yeah, we don't really do any tillage. Everything we do is airway seeding. So we just punch holes in the ground and drop seeds into the holes and do it like that. We don't really ever till up any type of land. We just improve the land by adding onto the top of it, adding the organic matter. So I don't think we've tilled up a field, and I don't think we have a plow.
Yeah.
So the last time we tilled up a field, we had to borrow a plow from a neighbor just to till this field up. And the only reason we tilled it up was because it was just so miserably rough to try to mow. So, and it still is, but it's better than it was.
So back to the hemp quick. So you went into that with buyers lined up.
We had buyers lined up, contracts signed.
Oh wow!
And
you were ahead of the game.
Yeah, we were ahead of the game. We had contracts signed. We had a buyer that was ready to take it all, and it just what happened was there was all these producers producing the hemp, but there wasn't enough people the New York State didn't hand out enough licenses to process the hemp. So there was tons of people making it, but only a few places could process it and turn it into the oils. and they just couldn't take any more, and that was the problem. So I mean, and there was guys that basically that had the hemp the same year we did it that they just burned it.
Yeah.
Because they just couldn't get rid of it, and I mean, they just didn't want it sitting in their barn taking up space, and it was worthless. And then at that point, I mean, once the next year's hemp harvest is done, I mean, if you have stuff from the year before, nobody's going to pay you for it. Why would they pay you for old hemp when there's new stuff that they can get for basically the same price? So, yeah.
So would you kind of see the writing on the wall and said, we made it out this year, I'm not going to chance it again.
We're not going to do it again. I mean,
Yeah.
if we saw that the industry got better and there was processors and everything lined up to basically, make it better, we might consider it, because we did enjoy it. Hemp was really fun to grow. It was a really different crop than anything we've ever grown before. So we really did enjoy growing it. It was just, can't grow it if you're not going to make money.
Yeah.
We paid $1.25 per seedling or transplant. So it was very expensive cost to get into it, because you have to buy only females and they have to be sexed, because if they get pollinated by a male, then your whole entire crop is basically ruined.
You have to find the one,
Yep.
what is it, one male for every X thousand?
It's like one male per 8,000. So you have to basically, we walked through the fields looking for male plants so that we could cut them before they pollinated the females. Because once they pollinated the females, they weren't flower buds anymore, and they weren't good for making oil. So
You found them, I take it.
yep, we had a guy come that was really good at it, and he came through and walked the fields with us and was able to point out a couple of them. I think out of the whole field, I think they said we pulled maybe 4.
Yeah.
So it wasn't terrible, but it definitely could have really impacted a lot if we would have let it go too long. So, but yeah.
Quite an experiment.
Yeah, we do. We try to have our hands in for some reason, we like to do just about everything. We do syrup, we do honey, we do a full-on market garden produce. We sell to local businesses. We do farmers markets. We are doing a CSA this year. So we do a lot like that. Then we do beef, we do pigs, we do chickens.
Nice.
Basically anything that.
I didn't realize you do all. I knew you did the farmers markets. I didn't know you did honey and maple
Yep.
and all that.
One of the brothers does honey. One of the father does syrup. Me and my wife, we do the market garden and the produce. So we do a lot of tomatoes. We do 4,000 to 6,000 onions, 1,000 tomato plants. I mean, just
Wow.
we do a lot. So we keep really busy.
Zucchini and squash.
Yep, zucchini, squash. I bought some squash from your mother last.
Yeah,
yep,
yeah,
it was
that's
squash
right,
from your
yeah.
mother last year, because we grew a lot, but we just didn't end up having the amount that we needed to supply the market. So we sold out of it pretty quickly. So a lot of butternut squash.
Mm-hmm.
So we do a lot of that. Tomatoes, we sell a lot of tomatoes. So just people like tomatoes. So
Yeah, I love tomatoes. Fresh tomato. You cannot beat a fresh tomato. That's for darn
Yep.
sure. That's cool. Yeah. Wow. You guys are kind of, like you said, you are into everything. Plus,
Yep.
you have the dairy.
Yep, we have the dairy farm, and we try to, we like to be really busy. So, and then, with the 2 twin boys, and very busy. Yep.
Yeah, it's not just one's busy enough. I'm sure you throw a second one in there.
Oh yeah, they love to come to the farm, and they help us. My wife brings them to the farm and milks every morning at 5:30 with them, and they go to the farm every night at 4:30, and they milk the cows again, and they have their chores, and we're basically raising little adults is how I feel, because they don't really have any they have a few cousins that are around the same age as them, but most of their time is spent with the older nephew or aunts and uncles. So for being 2.5, I mean, they just full on sentences. They talk to you about excavators and skid steers, and they were super excited to go to the farm show, and we took them up to the farm show, and they were not wanting to leave the equipment barn or the equipment main facility. They would have been happy to stay there all day, and just every tractor just get up in it and climb in it and pull the levers, and
Honk the horn.
A few of them, they left the batteries in, and luckily they didn't have keys, but they were definitely able to turn all the lights and everything on. So I had to go back through, and I had to figure out how to turn all the lights off. So, yeah. But yeah, they keep us very busy. So, yeah.
Oh, good. So I was going to ask you, what do you do besides work? But it sounds like you stay pretty busy and you have your kids. And
Yeah, I do. I just work a lot. I stay very busy. We try to do about 60 hours a week with Dairy One, and then the rest of it's made up between the farm and the farming and whatever type of aspect. And then I got into three-wheeler racing a little bit last year. My brother-in-law is very big into racing the old Honda three-wheelers.
Yeah.
So he has a very fancy lowered three-wheeler that he races on the flat tracks and everything. So I tried it last year and I kept blowing my engine up. I don't know. It just wasn't built properly, apparently. So he'll hear this tomorrow and he'll get mad at me because he's the one that built it. But I do blame him.
You keep blowing. What are you doing? Hammering down on it?
The cylinder seized up on it after like 2 or 3 races, and we ended up having to tear it all apart, and I still have to order parts for it because I'm going to try racing again this year, but it's definitely it takes up a whole day. I mean, you get there at 3 in the afternoon and you're there till midnight.
Is that at Frozen Ocean?
No, Frozen Ocean doesn't race. We actually go all the way up to Paradise up near Geneva. And then there's another one, Champion, which is heading down towards Whitney Point area. So
okay. God, those things are like, you turn too hard and you'll flip right over.
That's why we lower them. And we lower them, and then they extend the axles out so they have a really wide footprint. And then that makes it a lot better. You still flip them, but you don't flip them.
Not as easy.
I've rolled a lot of three-wheelers.
How fast do you go on those?
His can go upwards of high 60s, almost 70s. Mine was a little lower. Mine was probably high 50s into the 60s. So,
and you're just on like a circular track?
No,
flat track?
we do a TT, which is half the oval, and then it cuts into the middle, and then there's a few jumps, and then there's like some sharp turns, and then there's some like small bends that you have to go through, and then you come back out onto the oval and pin it out onto the oval straight away. So, and you do a few laps of that. So
it's not like you're going 40, 50 miles an hour all the time. You're slowing. You're hitting jumps.
You slow through. You go a little slower through those the TT track, but when you hit that open straightaway, it's wide open. So you're going pinning it as fast as you can. So and there's the 200 class, and that's 200 cc's and less, and then there's the open class, which these guys are putting big Yamaha triple motors in these three-wheelers that the motor's bigger than the trike itself, and they're just pinning it. And it's those guys, they're moving 75 miles an hour, if not more. So, and it's a lot of power. So,
yeah. So do you run the 200 or the open?
I run the 200 class. Yeah. Yep, I don't need that type of
firepower under your ass.
Yeah, I'm good. I did it looking for an adrenaline rush because apparently I don't have enough of adrenaline rush just farming and everything. So I did that, and if that doesn't give it to me this year, I'll probably try bull riding next year. So
bull riding, really?
I'd like to try bull riding.
If you aren't complete, if bull riding doesn't satisfy your adrenaline rush, I don't know what else to tell you.
Yeah, it's worth a shot.
Where are you gonna do that at?
There's a guy up in northern New York. He's about an hour and a half away. He's got a bull riding, I guess it's a ranch, whatever he calls it. He raises bucking bulls, and I've talked to him a little bit, and he's willing to have me come up and get on him whenever I want. So I might try that, but my boss doesn't want me to go do that because if I get hurt, then somebody's got to test my farms.
Yeah.
So, and he won't give me workers' comp apparently, even though it's a cow that hurts me. But
yeah, you could tell. Yeah, that doesn't count as being on the job and getting hit by a cow.
Anytime I get hurt at my farm, I sit there and think, how can I take this to work with me?
Get the system, yeah.
Yeah, but I have yet to get hurt enough that I can't go to work.
Well, I hope that stays.
Yeah.
I hope you don't get hurt. So that'd be.
Which I was around when I told you I crushed my hand, right?
No.
I slipped and fell into our barn cleaner.
Oh, while I was running?
While I was running, and I landed on the sprocket, and my sweatshirt got caught in the sprocket, so I held my hand up like this going all the way around. I was like, okay, I'll just let it feed around, but I was worried about my fingers going in the sprocket. Didn't realize I got so close to the belt, and it went all the way around the belt pulley that drives a really fast one. So it popped all my knuckles open. That was about a month ago. Popped them all open, and my whole hand was swollen, but I still tested. Still went to work.
Jeez, no, you never mentioned that.
Yeah, it was probably after I tested you.
Yeah, you were just here you were just here a few weeks ago. Like 2 weeks
Yeah,
ago?
it was probably a little bit before that.
Okay.
It was a few weeks before that. So,
No one was in there to yell and say, shut it down?
well, it happened so quickly. Like
Okay.
I landed on a sprocket and it was going all the way around. I was like, okay, this isn't that bad. But then it hit the pulley and that pulley's spinning really fast.
Yeah.
So it just went vroom all the way around really fast. So I pulled my hand out and it was all busted open. So I shut the gutter cleaner off and I walked into the milk house and I was like, I'm going to go sit in my truck for a little bit and just kind of, let this pain just start. So I had somebody else go spread manure and I sat there and let the pain start.
Yeah, because it's completely numb.
Yep, it's
and
all the
it's
adrenaline's up and your body's kind of like, but you haven't felt the pain yet. And then the next day I felt the pain.
Yeah,
So-
jeez. It didn't break it. It just
Nope, it just
cut.
popped. It popped all my fingers out of socket a little bit. So I had to kind of push them all back in to lock them back into place. And then I had it wrapped very tight for a few days, so that helped. So
Well, at least you did it while it was still numb, so it probably
Yeah.
didn't hurt as much as.
it was all right.
Yikes.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're all right. You didn't lose all your fingers.
That's what I mean, if I would have fell into the sprocket, it would have just been a very slow popping of every single finger off. Then I wouldn't have been able to test because I can't write with my left hand at all. So,
My God. Oh man, yeah, testing with no fingers, a thumb. At least you got your
thumb,
thumb.
yeah. I told my wife, I was like, I'll just strap the clipboard to this arm and I'll learn to write with this hand. It'll be fine. But she didn't like that idea. So,
She's all right with you going and doing some bull riding.
yeah, my father-in-law was like, "Well, we got bulls here. I mean, anytime you're ready, just we'll tie one up." And I've had some cranky bulls at our farm that I thought about. We used to ride our dairy cows. We'd go out to the pastures to get them, and we didn't want to walk all the way back. So we'd have a few older cows that we knew would let us jump on their backs, and we'd ride them all the way back to the barn, and they were fine with it. So we've done that. We've jumped on the bulls, and they've ran us into concrete walls or whatever, and we've fallen off and gotten hurt, but it was nothing like actually riding a bull. So I'm curious to see what that's like.
Yeah, where this guy's just jumping up and down and kicking and
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't think I'll last very long, but I definitely will. I'll definitely try it at least once.
So is this just kind of like a try it one time, say I did it, that was awesome.
We'll see.
Or
We'll see if I like it
see.
enough.
We're gonna see you on the what's the bull riding PBR.
Oh yeah, you'll see
Professional
me
bull
there. Yeah,
There's Josh.
this is where he started.
I love how that's PBR. It's like,
Professional bull riding.
yeah, but it's the same as like beer, PBR
Oh,
beer.
yes.
I love how that's like you
Well, they
hear.
probably sponsor.
I'm
so.
sure they are. That
I
would make
would.
a lot of sense.
Yeah. But,
Oh.
but yeah, so that's basically my life, and that's what I do, and I do. I try to do my job. That's basically it. So
Sounds
it's
like
kind of
you-
what we all do, I guess.
Yeah, you just get through life and go
Mhm.
day at a time.
Yep.
If you weren't doing this, if you didn't have agriculture, any of that, what would you do?
I've heard you ask this question, and I always was gonna try to figure out what I said I was gonna do. Oh, probably some type of automotive, I guess, mechanic type of work like that, restoration, some type of work. So I got my old Ford pickup truck that I really like, and planning on restoring that in the next year or two. So I like that type of work, and so
Like to tinker on.
I like
equipment.
to tinker and fix on stuff. Yep. So
Just not the new stuff because you can't fix your
I can't fix it.
reverse.
You can't fix. I can't fix that. I don't know why I can't fix that.
It's all
but
a dumb computer in
it's
it.
all well. If it was just a gear system
Oh.
transmission, I would be more than happy to tear into it. But being all like it's all solenoids and they drive out, and then we went over to Empire Tractor to see if we could get a schematic to say, okay, it's this solenoid's making the reverse not work. Not even in the manual did they say this is what this solenoid does and this is what this one does. There's 8 of them and nobody knows what they do. So apparently nobody knows. So
you buy all 8 and you see.
they basically told me that I could buy one brand new one and just start swapping it in and out of all 8 of them and just see when it finally turns on.
Oh.
And then I would know which one does what. I'm like, well, that seems like a very expensive way to do this, but I guess because there's two parts to the solenoid. There's either the electrical part or the valve itself, and I think both parts together are like $1,400. So I don't really want to pay $1,400 just to try to figure it out. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't.
Yeah.
Because I don't think once I start plugging it in and out, they'll return it.
You'll have a brand new one on the shelf when you need it, right?
Oh yeah. So But yeah, so
Well, cool, man.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess. Thanks for stopping in.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is a lot of fun, and
Oh yeah.
I've learned some new stuff about you, and I did the whole. Keep me in tune about the bull riding. I want to see some videos,
I
man.
will if I ever get up there. I was supposed to do it. The year COVID hit that spring, and then they canceled it because of COVID.
Yeah.
So I kind of was like, well, I'll put it on the back burner, and maybe it'll come up again. So I'm gonna try it. Hopefully sooner than later.
Yeah, wear a thick helmet and some body armor, and a cup.
Yeah, probably. Don't wanna. I have kids. I think I want a few more.
I was gonna say, maybe if you don't want kids, then okay, cool. But yeah,
Yeah.
if you're planning on expanding your family, you might wanna.
Yeah, probably. So.
But anyway, well, thanks for stopping in, Josh.
Yep.
It was
Thank
good
you for
chatting
having
with
me.
you. Anytime, definitely.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. I'll see you in the next one.